Hey, welcome one and all to another cartooning course. I'm Nate Fakes, and thank you so much for joining me today. Glad to see you here, although it's a little hard to see virtually through a screen, because, yeah, quite frankly, I can't see anyone, just a little camera. But, hey, you know what I mean. Thanks for being here. Today what I thought I would talk about is three of my biggest failures that I feel like I've had in my cartooning career. And I don't know if these are my biggest failures, but I looked at them as failures, and when I say failure, I look back at that then, and I think they're learning experiences. You know what I mean? And they've helped me figure out along the way of kind of what I want to do, what I don't want to do. In hindsight, I can kind of see why a lot of this stuff didn't work out too well. But, when you put things together and you put stuff out there and you really, you put a lot of work into it, you want to see things take off and succeed and do great. And I've had a lot of things, the percentage of things I've tried don't work. Trust me, it's nothing new here. I'm sure you've had stuff that you try and just doesn't work out too well. And you'll find when you want to be a full-time cartoonist, it's going to happen constantly. You're going to have a ton of stuff just, not happen for you. And I'm dealing with that right now as we speak. I pitched a book recently and I haven't heard back from anyone. Crickets. And I've been working on this. There's actually two books, and the first one I've been working on for years, and I've had nothing come out of it. And then the second one is a cartoon collection, and even that I'm not hearing anything back. So, to this day, it doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing, whatever, you're going to have failures. And so with the book example, it's going to be interesting to see what happens out of that. But I'm not going to count those. I'm not counting those out because I have a few ideas for those anyways. And anyway, those I don't look at as failures yet. And again, I would look at them as learning experiences if they don't work out the way I planned. And they may not, and I may have to go a different route with them. But here are three other things that I have had in my past that just have not worked out too well. Number one, I put together a Kickstarter back in, I believe this was 2013, 2013 through 2012, for a graphic novel I was going to do called Don Giovanni. And this concept I really loved, and I based it actually off of the Mozart opera Don Giovanni. I like the whole story. It's about this mischievous character that is just brutally, he's an asshole, nobody really likes him, he treats people bad, and then it all comes back to he gets punished basically for all his wrongdoings as it goes on. But anyway, I had it set up in a children are the main characters instead of adults like originally it was with Mozart. And I love Mozart, by the way. Say what you will. I don't care. Make fun of me. I love Mozart. Always have. My favorite movie of all time is Amadeus. It's a good movie. Check it out. But back to the topic. Don Giovanni, graphic novel. I thought I was going to do great. So what do? You start a Kickstarter, right? I thought I had it all mapped out. There was another Kickstarter I saw for a graphic novel that asked for like tens of thousands of dollars. So I did the same thing, thinking that I based it at that, thinking that money income could be used for my pay to cover my working expenses so I could quit the lousy day job I had at the time, which I think was doing customer service at the newspaper. I'm pretty sure. So I counted that. I factored that in. And I just had no clue what I was doing when I launched this thing. I put the whole thing on Kickstarter. I told people I knew. I had a small email list and just not a huge social media following or anything like that at the time. So I put it out there. I asked for a ton of money, and it didn't happen. If you don't know Kickstarter, it's crowdfunded. You probably know this, but the audience that you have will fund your project, and then it either gets funded or it won't. And if it doesn't get funded, you get nothing. If it gets funded, you get the full amount and you deliver the project. So I think I'll have to look at it again. I don't have it in front of me, but I asked for like tens of thousands of dollars, and I think I raised just over $2,000. That's it. And in hindsight, doing it over again, I didn't need that much money for it. I could have done this project for a lot less. B, I had some kinks in the project itself. Don Giovanni as a graphic novel just wasn't cutting it. I've actually restructured the whole thing and have something else I've worked on with the concept after all these years. But yeah, it just wasn't. It just wasn't quite there yet for me personally. And what I did with that Kickstarter is I just wanted to get it out there. I just wanted to get it out there because I thought about it for so long. It's like, just freaking do it. And that's a good attitude to have in general, like with things. I tend to do that. If I want to do something, I'll just do it, like start it, get it out there. These videos are a good example of that. Like I've always thought about doing a video series and courses, and I was like, just do it. So like I launched last year, and no, it's been going great. So yeah, I usually do that, but with this Kickstarter, I kind of just did it wrong. I didn't have any hype for it. I didn't like do a pre-release. Is that what you call it? I don't know, but like I didn't talk about it before I released it. I just kind of like put it out there, like, oh hey, there's a Kickstarter, go fund it. Nobody knew anything about the story. So anyway, it was a big quote unquote failure. It did not succeed at all. So that was number one. That's out there for the whole world to see too. It's like, at the time, it felt embarrassed. It was a little embarrassing. I was like, oh man, everyone's going to see that I just couldn't fund the project. But it's okay. That's going to happen. But that was one I looked at, was like, I just went about it wrong, and it didn't happen. It was a big Kickstarter failure. It didn't get kick-started, put it that way. So that was one. Another thing I did at one point in time was I called it Cartoon Your Pets. And I set up a website and everything. And what I was doing with it was people would send in their pets, and I could do a portrait out of it. Call them portraits more than cartoons because they actually looked really realistic. I took kind of an outline of the pet, and I colored it in Photoshop and had a little cartoony aspect to it. But in general, they actually looked kind of realistic. But Cartoon Your Pets, I had a thing where I could actually do a cartoon with it as well. It just never took off. And I was really that's one I was surprised with. And I think if I would have hung in there and really devoted more time to it, it probably would have done better. It's just, I didn't love it to death. And what I did like about it was I donated, it was like 20% of the income to a animal shelter of your choice, which I thought that was I love supporting animal shelters. So I thought that was really cool. And I like that aspect of it. It got really, I don't know, it just didn't take off. I even went to the SPCA and did a few presentations for kids and stuff there, and they actually hung up some posters of mine for it. So it got promoted, it was out there. It just never took off, and I was hoping that would be like a replacement for my day job. Again, I don't know where I was working at the time, doing something. I've had a lot of crappy day jobs. I was doing something. I was hoping that would supply the income, and then I could work on my other cartooning projects. Because I knew then even I didn't want to just do like pet characters, pet portraits. It just wasn't for me. I had more I wanted to do, and I think that's why it kind of failed. I didn't devote myself 100% to it. But I had a few customers. I had a few clients, and it was what it was. I did bring in a little bit of money, but it wasn't like it didn't take off, and eventually I shut it down after about a year or so, I think. But so yeah, that didn't work out too well. So Cartoon Your Pets, that was one. Another one, which this is kind of heartbreaking for me, and I'll tell you the quick story. When I think I've told this before maybe, but when I interned at Mad Magazine in New York City, that felt huge to me. I was like on top of the world, I loved it. I was Mad Magazine intern when they were in New York in 2004. And my goal for this whole thing was I moved from Ohio to New York City, and I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay at Mad Magazine. I didn't want to go back to Ohio. I didn't look at it as an internship. I was like, this is going to be my job interview. I'm staying. I'm not going back there. So I went through the whole internship, and in hindsight, I wish I would have just taken it for what it was, an internship. I wish I would have just had more fun. Instead, I was really like so focused on making a good impression. I feel like in some ways I didn't. That being said, I got along with everyone there. I consider them friends today. I best group of people, I think. Anyway, perfectly, it was me though. I just was so like uptight about like being myself, and just trying to make that impression because I wanted to stay. Luckily, I didn't like make a fool out of myself and like grab him by the leg on the way out on the last day of the internship, like begging for a job there. But I just knew, I got the vibe, like I'm not going to be staying here. And again, in hindsight, here's the thing, like the people that work at MAD, they're editors, and you have, the artistic art department too that puts together the magazine, but I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready to be an editor or anything. I was still in college, and like there wasn't even a place for me to stay. All the artists they're freelance. They work anywhere. So it just wasn't an option. They had a full house already, and I wasn't ready yet anyways. So that last day of the internship, I was staying in New Jersey, and I went back to New Jersey, and I realized I had no money in my bank account, nothing, because this was an unpaid internship too. So I had to do something. I didn't have a car, anything like that. So across the street, like a couple blocks away, there was a Pizza Hut. So that next day, immediately after my internship, I went to Pizza Hut, applied, and I got a job as a shift manager there. So I went from like working on Broadway, because it was 1700 Broadway was the address of Mad Magazine, right across from Dave Letterman at the time. It's like the coolest place in the world. You're in New York City, and you just feel like you're killing it. Like you feel almost famous, like you're at Mad. And then like the next day, I'm working at Pizza Hut because I needed money. So it felt like a big failure for me. Like I didn't get the job. I didn't make it there. And I lasted in Jersey. The internship ended in August, and I stayed in Jersey till I think October. And then I hightailed it back to Ohio, where I continued to work at a pizza place for a long time. So, yeah, and that was one of those things too, where I wrote it down on paper, like I wasn't going to work at a day job ever again. I'm going to get this job at MAD. It still didn't work out. And that just shows like anything can happen, and sometimes your goals are not hit. But that doesn't mean you just give up on them. And again, I can't stress this enough, and I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but look at things in hindsight. Like the way it worked out in MAD, if things didn't go the way they did, I probably wouldn't have gotten married to my wife. I probably wouldn't have had my daughter. Well, definitely not, because I wouldn't have been married. I would have think life just would have been different. It would have been, I would have been in New York City, and I don't know if I would have loved living there. And I'm in California now, so but I took that experience. The experience helped me on later in life with cartooning, so it wasn't a failure after all. It wasn't, but at the time I really looked at it and so keep that in mind when you have things that don't pan out the way you want. Even if you write it down as a goal and you hang it up and you do everything right, you hear these books, you hear me talk about it, like writing stuff down, putting them on a board. That doesn't always work either, but I've said it before too. I swear there's a method to this madness. The universe is looking out for you. If you do everything, if you put in the work and you go for it, it may not work out exactly how you wanted, but it will work out in the end. Not the end, just as you go along, things come. And maybe a lot of times it's not anything that you ever expected to happen. I can tell you right now, the position I'm in, I never expected to be doing what I'm doing. So anyway, guys, keep that in mind. Those are three of my biggies, my big ones. The big, at the times, just felt like utter defeat. Like I felt like a failure through a lot of it, and it was tough. It was brutal, but things worked out the way they were supposed to work out. So yeah, what's your big failures that you've had? I'd love to hear from you. Leave some comments below. Shoot me an email. That's one of my biggest things. I love to hear from you. What kind of failures you've had, or maybe you're experiencing now even with cartooning. Because it's going to happen a lot. I still go through a ton of them, and a lot of them are disappointing, but I have a new perspective on them too. Like when they don't work out the way I wanted them to, there's a reason for that, and you do what else you can to get to where you want to go, and take it from there. So anyways, as always, hey, if you've not taken my 3-part cartooning course, it's totally free. I'm not going to send you a bill in the mail or anything for it. Be sure to check it out. Cartooningcourses.com. I have some information on it there. There's a link below also, but just click it. It's totally free, and I promise I don't spam you. In fact, I send you a weekly video on top of it, and that's really it. A couple of blog posts here and there, but there's no anything else. Just I hope you learned something from it. But again, love to hear from you about what you have going on that maybe you feel like you failed at. Or if you just want to tell me about the weather, hey, that's cool too. Why not? I'd love to hear the temperatures in other parts of the country. So, all right, maybe that might get a little redundant. I don't need to hear your weather. But anyway, love to hear from you guys. And again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.